Greetings, friends, you're on the channel. Military reporter, and today we are going to discuss with you the situation in Ukraine on the 3rd of March 2025. On the 3rd of March 2025, according to the information we have, there are very heavy clashes in the Sudzha direction. Yes, during the previous day, there was almost no news from this area because the Russians, over the past week, managed to improve their position significantly right before the meetings and talks with Trump. Then, the Russians took a short operational pause. Now, they are about to finish their regrouping and will begin another wave of offensives right before the European summit, which is scheduled to take place on March 6th. As for the current situation, we see the following configuration. The Russians have managed to establish complete FPV drone control over the main supply road between the settlement of Su and the settlement of Sway. Everything that moves along these roads is being destroyed by the Russians without any problems. The losses on the Ukrainian side are much higher than 33%, possibly reaching 66% or even 70%. Almost everything that Ukrainians try to send through these roads is being destroyed by the Russians, making these losses extremely heavy. Furthermore, the Russians have established complete control over another supply road that Ukrainians use. This road runs between the settlements of Mioa Gerel and Gwa. Today, we received another video showing a few vehicles from the armed forces of Ukraine moving from the Sumy area toward the settlement of Gwa. Perhaps the Ukrainians were planning to move even further toward the city of Sudra. However, the Ukrainian vehicles were ambushed and destroyed. At this point, every single road that Ukrainians once used to supply their forces in Sudzha is already under complete Russian fire control. Additionally, today, we received the first geolocation footage from the Sumy region, published by the Ukrainian side, which confirms Russian control on the Ukrainian side of the border. In this video, we see an FPV attack on a Russian vehicle moving precisely at this location. Based on this video, we have adjusted a small part of the Sumy region in Russia's favor. This territory was previously considered part of the contested gray zone. Now, we have no doubts that the Russians are already on the territory of Sway. Moreover, today, various pro-Russian mappers additionally confirmed Russian control over the settlement of Noink, at least over its northern part. So, we can see that the Russians continue advancing. For now, it is very difficult to determine what the Russians will do next because the weather conditions are not ideal for offensive operations due to heavy losses. The Russians may suffer, but obviously, they can move very slowly, step by step, in the southern direction. Furthermore, we continue receiving updates from the northern part, particularly from the settlement of Ai. Today, different sources, including pro-Ukrainian sources, confirmed that the settlement of Pagri and the northern part of Sova Saracha were completely secured and cleared by the Russians. So, basically, the pro-Ukrainian sources confirmed the maps that we can see almost on every single mapper. Additionally, Russian sources published a video from the northernmost part, where the 22nd Regiment of the Armed Forces of the Russian Federation raised the Russian flag almost in the most northern part of the village. This suggests that the reports we received yesterday and the day before about Russian control over the settlement of Novosaro were most likely correct. Furthermore, sources reported that the Russians are currently trying to advance along the railways in the southern direction, attempting to encircle the Ukrainians in the settlement of Mala El from the north. Anyway, before March 6th, before the European summit, there are expected to be very heavy clashes. The main objective of the Russians would be to cut off the island and force the Ukrainians to retreat toward the settlement of Mala Kaziloa. Now, let's move further and discuss the situation in the northern CIN direction. Today, sources, mainly pro-Ukrainian sources and null mappers, reported that, as a result of a counteroffensive operation, Ukrainians managed to restore control over the tree lines, the forested areas, and some constructions southwest of Sinkovka. This territory was previously under complete Russian control. I remind you that, toward the end of December, the Russians managed to enter the city of Kin, where very heavy clashes took place in the northwestern part. However, the Russians were eventually forced to retreat and abandon some positions, digging in deeper on the northeastern outskirts. Now, it seems that Ukrainians counterattacked and pushed the Russians back. The main goal of this counterattack from the Ukrainian side is to advance along the Oskil River to cut off Russian supply and support on the Ukrainian side of the river. Most likely, Ukraine will continue its offensive operation in the direction of Lon-Peri and the dismantlement of Sinova from the north, with the goal of isolating Russian forces on the Ukrainian side of the river. If the Ukrainians successfully complete this offensive operation, we should expect several more attempts from their side to attack in the direction of Zapad. Most likely, Ukraine will also attempt a counterattack in the area of D to force the Russians to retreat. Obviously, very heavy clashes are expected to take place in this area in the near future. Now, let's move further and discuss the situation in the central Kpin direction. According to the information we have today, based on pro-Ukrainian sources, the Russians, as a result of an offensive operation, managed to improve their positions and capture several positions held by the armed forces of Ukraine in the village of Zaga. Based on the reports published by pro-Ukrainian sources, we can conclude that the settlement of Zaga was caught in a pincer movement by the armed forces of the Russian Federation. The Ukrainians were encircled from both the west and the east, leaving only one road, which is most likely already under complete Russian FPV drone control. Most likely, in the near future, the Russians will launch a major offensive with the objective of forcing the Ukrainians to retreat completely toward the settlement of Belava. Furthermore, the Russians have begun or resumed their offensive operations along the line between the settlements of Kopin Nad and Reka. Now, let's move further and discuss the situation in the southern Cin direction. Today, according to different mappers, the Russians managed to secure the forest between Yolka and Teret, establishing complete control over the area. This indicates that the Kopin's direction has been quite active in recent days. I'll remind you that several days ago, the Commander-in-Chief, the Chief of the General Staff of the Armed Forces of the Russian Federation, Valery Gerasimov, visited the area of responsibility of the Group of Forces West, probably providing them with additional orders and tasks for the future. This suggests that the Group of Forces West has likely begun implementing the orders received from the head of the Russian army. Now, let's move forward and discuss the situation in the city of Tesk. Today, according to the information we have, the Russians managed to improve their positions after a successful Ukrainian counterattack. In this video, we can see the central citadel of the city of Tesk, which was partly taken by the Ukrainians during their counterattack. Additionally, in the video, we see how the Russians attempted to reduce to ruins another building captured by the Ukrainians during this attack. This indicates that the Russians now face some challenges, as the Ukrainians have managed to enter the central part of the city. Now, the Russians need to waste resources and time in an effort to force the Ukrainians to retreat from this area once again. As for the Pakar direction, we have many interesting updates today. Pro-Ukrainian sources confirmed that the Russians, as a result of a number of counterattacks, managed to restore complete control over the settlement of Pana. At least, this information was provided to us by pro-Ukrainian sources. With the confirmation that the Russians have restored control, they have also managed to re-establish supply lines running from the settlement of Shenka to Pana and then in the direction of Chu. Today, the Russians began bombing and attacking, probably for the first time since establishing control over the railways. They targeted another industrial zone to the north of Och. This area serves as the main base for the armed forces of Ukraine, functioning as a key checkpoint and stronghold for regrouping before launching further offensive operations. This suggests that, in the very near future, the Russians may attempt to attack this area. If they manage to establish control over the industrial zone, it would result in a complete defeat and collapse of the Ukrainian defensive lines in this area. Now, let's move further and discuss the situation in the southern direction. According to the information we have, during the previous night, the Russians managed to improve their positions to the north of Belet. They captured a few more tree lines, fields, and fortifications as they advanced, aiming to outflank the settlement of Shenka from the east-northeast. It appears that the Russians are attempting a maneuver in this direction, trying to get as close as possible to the settlement of Vis and launch an attack on this village from the west as well. This is what the Russians are currently attempting to complete. Most likely, their next objective in this direction is to take full control over everything within this red line. Villages such as Visola and Neproinia are their primary targets for the next several weeks. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to my channel, leave a like, and have a great day.